In 1995, as a 24-year-old entrepreneur, Elon Musk was giving a demonstration of a video game he had created called Rocket Science. As he eagerly explained the intricacies of rocket thrust and orbital mechanics he had programmed into the game, he suddenly stopped mid-sentence when he noticed no one seemed captivated. The blank looks made it clear. Nobody was interested in space rockets. This experience was a sobering moment for Musk, who had been obsessed with space travel and rockets since he was a child reading science fiction and watching Star Wars. Up until then, he thought everyone would, of course, be excited about rockets as he was. The tepid response forced Musk to recalibrate. He realized if he wanted to pursue his dreams of space exploration, he couldn't rely on public enthusiasm. Instead, he would have to make it himself. This pivotal episode revealed to Musk the need to generate public interest and business opportunities around space in order to drive innovation. It would ultimately lead him to start SpaceX several years later. This story also provides an insightful glimpse into a young Elon Musk and his evolving ambition to push boundaries in space technology despite an indifferent public. It's a prelude to his emerging tenacious spirit of overcoming obstacles that disrupt stagnant industries for the betterment of humanity. That is one example and one story for Elon Musk, who will be the subject of episode 22 here for Leaders. And welcome back to Leaders, a podcast dedicated to exploring the best leaders this world has ever seen. Elon Musk, certainly a popular figure in today's world. Whether you agree or disagree with his tactics, philosophies, leadership principles of most recently late and Twitter and X endeavors, the track record of him as a leader definitely has results, and definitely he thinks and leads in a much different way than most others. And when the biography from Walter Isaacson came out, definitely went full into reading that and just finished that up. So a lot of the notes and resources and things mentioned within this podcast are from that book, as well as the Wait But Why Elon Musk series from Tim Urban, as well as some other interviews that he has done over the years. And so let's trace the life of Elon Musk first through some of his major events and defining career moments. And so part of that would probably start within Zip2 in 1995. So he co-founded his first company, Zip2, which was an online sort of city guide for newspapers, and it was sold to Compaq for $307 million in 1999, providing him his first significant fortune. He then goes on in 1999 to go to PayPal, part of the infamous PayPal mafia. He co-founded the online financial services company X.com, which later became PayPal after that merger. The PayPal sale to eBay for $1.5 billion in 2002 cemented his status in Silicon Valley. In 2002, he starts SpaceX after 3 failed orbital rocket launches. They became the first private company to launch a spacecraft into orbit around Earth. In 2008, with the Falcon 1 rocket, it signaled his entry into the space industry. In that same year of 2008, the Tesla Roadster, under his leadership, Tesla launched that first car, the all-electric Roadster sports car. It established Tesla as a legitimate auto manufacturer moving forward. The SpaceX Dragon in 2010 they became the first private company to successfully launch and return a spacecraft from orbit with that Dragon capsule. It enabled them to then begin working with NASA, which is big. Tesla IPO in 2010, opening up public stock ownership, becoming the first American auto startup to go public since Ford in 1956. The Falcon Heavy launch in 2018. So they launch that massive rocket with 27 engines and a massive payload capacity. It became the most powerful operational rocket in the world. Crew Dragon launch in 2020. So they launched a first crewed spaceflight to the International Space Station, returning domestic home spaceflight capabilities to the U.S. for the first time since 2011, solidified him as a visionary entrepreneur capable of disrupting both aerospace and automotive, made the ideas really of commercial space travel and electric vehicles tangible realities. And so let's spend most of our time here into his leadership style and some of his mantras and philosophies as a leader. And I think the first place to start here is with a renowned principle of his, and that is first principles thinking. Jensen Huang, episode 20, also mentioned first principles mindset. You will see this and hear this within other leaders, but really Elon, I think, encapsulates this the most. And so he thinks of himself as a first principle thinker and using it with reasoning versus reasoning by analogy. I think generally people's thinking process is too bound by convention or analogy to prior experiences. It's rare that people try to think of something on a first principles basis. They'll say, we'll do that because it's always been done that way. Or they'll not do it because, well, nobody's ever done that, so it must not be good. But that's just a ridiculous way to think. You have to build up the reasoning from the ground up, from the first principles, is the phrase that's used in physics. You look at the fundamentals and construct your reasoning from that. And then you see if you have a conclusion that works or doesn't work. And it may or may not be different from what people have done in the past. So he definitely develops a maniacal sense of urgency into his company's operating principles as well. So making engineers within Tesla, SpaceX, engage in this first principle thinking is at the forefront of his mind. And one thing that repeats itself too is that it's not only his hardware which is impressive, but his software that makes him great. So him obsessing over optimizing for that software within his mind really drives forward great results and ventures for which no one else really had pursued or really dreamed of. And one of these also other concepts is of a chef and a cook. And so a chef creates and a cook copies. So this is from Tim Urban's Wait But Why series, and he makes this analogy here as well in comparing Elon, the chef, with the cook of, perhaps some of the other people around him and some of the competition. And so it's quoted within there and saying, whatever the time, place, or industry, anytime something really big happens, there's almost always an experimenting chef at the center of it, not being anything magical, just trusting their brain and working from scratch. Our world, like our cuisines, was created by these people. The rest of us are just along for the ride. Yeah, Musk is smart as fuck and insanely ambitious, but that's not why he's beating everybody. What makes Musk so rad is that he's a software outlier, a chef in a world of cooks, a science geologist in a world of flood geologists, a brain software pro in a world where people don't realize brain software is a thing. That's Elon Musk's secret sauce, which is why the real story here isn't Musk, it's us. The real puzzle in this series isn't why Elon Musk is trying to end the era of gas cars or why he's trying to land a rocket or why he cares so much about colonizing Mars. It's why Elon Musk is so rare. So Elon says, really, there's no such thing as business. It's more of a group of people trying to actively pursue a goal. And part of this is that he wants to write his own history within his ventures and his business and his vision. And part of that is done through vertical integration. Really, part of that reasoning, he claims too, is that there is ultimately a deficit of ambition in the world, and he tries to fill that and says there's really no speed limit into pursuing that. So he's going very speedy, and we'll reference this, I'm sure, in future sections, but he really questions and expedites deadlines and timelines of projects, and really tries to push people to think otherwise and act otherwise to meet those. Management style here really aligns with a just do it attitude. So don't talk about it, but more a bias towards action. And really, he does that also with the tenacity and innovative spirit. And part of his uniqueness within a leader as well is that he is on the ground floor and he is in the details of a lot of things. So he's working alongside teams often, hands-on involvement into the design and engineering processes, basically teaches himself kind of rocket science to try and get into and start SpaceX. He's in the factory floor at Tesla, designing the rockets at SpaceX. So he's in the company and in the intricate details of design and engineering. He's also trying to attract top talent. He ultimately is a demanding manager. One of his tactics was to set insane deadlines and drive colleagues to meet it. Really, that in part, as well as a few other qualities, speak to that he is a magnet for both risk and drama. The early X and PayPal days restructured the company that he started so that there was not a separate engineering department. Instead, engineers would team up with product managers, a philosophy that he would carry through to Tesla, SpaceX, and Twitter. Separating design of product from its engineering was a recipe for dysfunction. Engineers with product managers should lead the team. His theme in life is really back to that magnet for risk and drama. Avoid taking chips off the table and keep risking them. He also, within this public domain, most notably recently within X and Twitter, he is enthusiastic but has an awkward attraction to publicity. So he would never become an on-air pitchman for his products like Lee Iacocca, who we covered in a previous episode 4. And so one of the mantras that he has to go a little bit further into this is also at Tesla or SpaceX, and that is called the algorithm. And so right below that answer is another answer from an anonymous SpaceX engineer who describes working for Musk like this. You can always tell when someone's left an Elon meeting. They're defeated. Nothing you ever do will be good enough, so you have to find your own value, not depending on praise to get you through your obviously insufficient 80-hour work weeks. My own talks with Musk's engineers and designers told a similar story. I was told, Elon always wants to know, why are we not going faster? He always wants bigger, better, faster, by the same person who a few minutes later was emphasizing how fair and thoughtful Musk tends to be in handling the terms for a recently fired employee. The same person who told me he has lots of sleepless nights said in the adjacent sentence how happy he is to be at the company and that he hopes to never leave. One senior executive described interacting with Musk like this. Any conversation's fairly high stakes because he'll be very opinionated and he can go deeper than you expect or are prepared for, or deeper than your knowledge goes on a given topic. And it does feel like a high wire act interacting with him, especially when you find yourself in a technical disagreement. The same executive who had previously worked at a huge tech company also called Musk the most grounded billionaire I've ever worked with. And so, like Amazon boss Jeff Bezos and the late Steve Jobs of Apple, Elon Musk's leadership style plays out as a style that has often been referred to as transformational leadership. In contrast to a transactional leadership style, transformational leaders get the results they need by inspiring, motivating, and working closely with their teams. So rather than hiring people to complete monotonous tasks, these leaders surround themselves with people who share their vision of changing the world. And really, he does have that visionary thinking, leading by example, and really within the vein of SpaceX, that is a multi-planetary species and spacefaring civilization, and ultimately his goal of colonizing Mars as a second sort of home for humans. We're to go back a little bit to that mantra at Tesla or SpaceX of the algorithm, and just go a little bit deeper into within that. The algorithm is shaped by the lessons he learned during the production hell surges at the Nevada and Fremont factories. His executives sometimes move their lips and mouth the words like they would chant the liturgy along with their priest. I became a broken record on the algorithm, Musk says, but I think it's helpful to say it to an annoying degree. It had 5 commandments. 1. Question every requirement. Each should come with the name of the person who made it. You should never accept that a requirement came from a department, such as from the legal department or the safety department. You need to know the name of the real person who made that requirement. Then you should question it, no matter how smart that person is. Requirements from smart people are the most dangerous because people are less likely to question them. Always do so even if the requirement came from me. Then make the requirements less dumb. Number 2, delete any part or process you can. You may have to add them back later. In fact, even if you do not end up adding back at least 10% of them, then you didn't delete enough. 3, simplify and optimize. This should come after step 2. A common mistake is to simplify and optimize a part of a process that should not exist. 4, accelerate cycle time. Every process can be speeded up, but only do this after you have followed the first 3 steps. In the Tesla factory, I mistakenly spent a lot of time accelerating processes that I later realized should have been deleted. 5, automate. That comes last. The big mistake in Nevada and at Fremont was that I began by trying to automate every step. We should have waited until all the requirements had been questioned, parts and processes deleted, and the bugs were shaken out. And so that just goes into the mind and what Elon had really imparted within those companies, and it speaks to his mantras of speed, efficiency, automation, and doing the right steps the right way. Okay, so let's go back to some of the leadership style and qualities that he exhibits. So we are going to see that it's challenging the status quo, so rejecting and challenging conventional wisdom. And one of these is iterative versus linear processes. So he chooses the linear process, and that is unconventional in that everyone kind of goes through most manufacturing processes and business processes by the iterative way, but he takes the linear path. He says, do not follow trends blindly, question and challenge the status quo. If there's anything that's defined his entire journey, it's probably the fact that he doesn't shy away from following that unconventional path. He's not afraid to think big and can see this with all the businesses he has ever founded or co-founded. Tesla wants to revolutionize the car industry. He's discussed blowing up a nuclear rocket on Mars to make it habitable. His Neuralink company as well is working on a brain-machine interface to integrate AI with the human brain. Bold and audacious moves, basically by every standard. And to achieve them, he's taking equally bold and audacious solutions, even if it means doing things that never have been done before. From SpaceX's president, Gwen Shotwell, she said was how they designed space rockets from a clean sheet of paper. Rather than build solely or primarily on legacy technologies often prone to reliability or cost issues, the team picked the most remarkable ideas from the rocket engineering industry and leveraged these to design its remarkable new rockets. He also sets strategic stretch goals. As part of that, he's a master of thinking big and setting those goals. When Elon says something, you have to pause and not blurt out, well, that's impossible. You zip it, you think about it, and you find ways to get it done. I've always felt like my job was to take these ideas and turn them into company goals to make them achievable. That was, again, Glenn Shotwell from her TED conference where she was talking about her experiences with working with Elon. In imparting these stretch goals, Tesla always doesn't meet those goals. They're ridiculously ambitious. And so you'd find Tesla failed to meet 20 of his audacious targets in the past 5 years in a Harvard Business Review publication, even missing half those goals by almost a year. That publication also reiterated the significance of setting such goals to keep individual team members and the entire organization motivated and inspired. Elon Musk leadership assembles the right team. So hire great people. Elon Musk says this is 90% of the solution, as hiring wrong can cost you so much. Hiring the right people is the most important advice for up-and-coming leaders. We do see this within Jeff Bezos, as well as namely Steve Jobs, in terms of spending time as a CEO and leader. He honed in on the idea that you need to really hone in on the talent aspects of that. And Elon identifies, how does he identify those right people? He says that he generally looks for things that are evidence of exceptional ability. I don't even care if somebody graduated from college or high school or whatever. Did they build some really impressive device, win some really tough competition, come up with some really great ideas, solve some really tough problems? He's also inspiring and motivating the team with some of those goals, but then also separating him as a successful leader within the ability to inspire others. So this is Elon as a leader in terms of building companies that have a ton of employees, the ability to make others believe in his vision. And it's probably easier when that vision revolves around building a better world. So he's also believed to have a level of enthusiasm and passion for his work that's kind of contagious. So it helps keep the team united around those visions and goals. He is often seen as being in the details, as I mentioned before, but sometimes he takes that to an extreme level in terms of micromanagement. So he's often been advised to hire a COO rather than try to get everything done by himself. One of his former employees is quoted to have said, Elon fires some engineer that made some irrelevant bad decision, and Elon sleeps on the factory floor until the problem is fixed or whatever. Elon's leadership style takes being detail-oriented to an extreme length, and the management style can impact employees negatively, sometimes when applied in the wrong context. He also, though, does within his leadership style prioritize communication. In one email he sent out to Tesla employees years ago on communications, he emphasized the need for employees to develop a direct, objective approach to sharing information. In it, he mentioned why employees don't follow a specific hierarchy or flow of communication to avoid stifling great ideas and bearing feedback within a complex communication channel. What does this mean for you as a leader? Make sure you're readily available to hear as many voices as possible. Be ready to listen to what members of your team and organizations really think. He is also using continuous feedback for improvement. He says, I think it's very important to have a feedback loop where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you could be doing it better. He also says, really pay attention to negative feedback and solicit it, particularly for friends. Hardly anyone does that, and it's incredibly helpful. He also tries to eliminate bias and assumptions. So one of the more popular stories is how he had adopted what we said before in terms of first principles mindset approach to every problem. So he begins by thinking about the possibilities. He eliminates those biases and assumptions, and which typically often act as barriers to creativity during decision-making processes. And we've mentioned this next quality a bunch in terms of a lot of these leaders and successful ones are adaptable to change and being flexible. And so change is really the only constant thing in life and business. And so part of Elon and the businesses that he runs, he has to adapt to change within that. And he easily changes his mind depending on whatever problem they're facing at the moment. has a reputation for changing course on products quickly in the face of new developments. He's also very proactive in that right, so he rarely waits for problems to happen before he moves to prevent them. When he started with SpaceX, he allocated $100 million and said he'd shut down operations if he failed to launch a rocket into space with that budget. The first 2 attempts failed and cost $90 million. The third and successful attempt cost $10 million. So he was almost down to his final dollars within that right, but really remained persistent and dedicated that it would work. Lessons from failure. So he's staying. He has the ability also to stay focused in crisis. So we've seen this within SpaceX, funding truly drying out at points, as well as Tesla, same issue. And so determination and resilience in terms of those early days at SpaceX on the verge of bankruptcy, from failing to launch into space at the first 2 attempts to the unbreakable Cybertruck's window cracking up not once but twice. He's had his fair share of many successes and multiple failures. Failure would come, and it often does, even for a detail-oriented perfectionist like him. It's, however, up to you not to allow such failures to derail your vision. Pick lessons in those and really learn from them over time. He is also a continuous learner, so Jim Cantrell, SpaceX's first engineer, said, in the same way that Musk absorbed books, he tried doing that with other people's expertise. It was as if he could suck the experience out of them. He truly listens to people. And so, wrapping up that leadership style section, we will go into some of the failures and challenges that he's encountered over time, which are many. Starting even with the Hyperloop. In 2013, he unveiled plans for a high-speed transformation system that would propel passenger pods through nearly airless tubes at speeds up to 760 miles per hour. While he open-sourced the idea, there's been little progress in making that a reality. The Tesla Roadster, so their first vehicle, was the high-performance Roadster. After being announced in 2006, it was delivered to customers in 2008, but production was very limited. Fewer than 2,500 were sold before it was discontinued in 2012. SpaceX rocket launches, so in the early days of SpaceX, they experienced multiple failures between 2006 and 2008. SpaceX has gotten much better, but still occasionally experiences launch failures. The Tesla Model X SUV faced significant production delays, cost overruns. Supposed to launch in 2014. Deliveries did not start until late 2015 at a higher cost. He also acquired Solar City in 2016, Tesla did, where Musk was chairman and his cousins were executives. Many saw it as a bailout of Solar City and questioned the $2.6 billion price tag that he ultimately paid for that. The Model 3, as well within Tesla, production faced significant manufacturing challenges 2017, 2018. Missed a ton of different production targets, went through production hell to get it ramped up. And finally, the infamous public tweets and so on and so forth. So 2018, funding secured to take Tesla private at $420 per share. Wasn't true and got sued by shareholders. He's definitely had his share of struggles, delays, self-inflicted wounds, flawed ideas. Ultimately tends to make, a level of progress over time despite all of these challenges. The last section here that we will cover off on are mentors and heroes. Steve Jobs comes to mind, and Elon mentions this within the biography a lot, and as does the author. And so we mentioned this before a little bit, but Steve Jobs had hiring as one of his top qualities, so that is a similarity. Like Steve Jobs, Elon genuinely did not care if he offended or intimidated the people he worked with, as long as he drove them to accomplish feats they thought were impossible. Similarities to Elon's aggressive schedule were Jobs' reality distortion field, where he would set unrealistic deadlines. When people balked, he would stare at them without blinking, Don't be afraid. You can do it. Product launches, you see a lot of similarities within the Apple and Tesla sort of theatrics of it, dramatic announcement events, creating a buzz that transforms it into an object of desire. The design principles of Steve Jobs and Jony Ive. Design is not just about aesthetics. True industrial design must connect the looks of a product to its engineering. He also does mention, so Larry Ellison is a mentor and great friend of his. He joined the boards of both Apple and Tesla. He's close friends with both Elon and Jobs. Both had cases of OCD. Musk applied that obsession not just to the design of a product, but also to the underlying science, engineering, and manufacturing. Steve got the conception and software, but he outsourced the manufacturing. So Elon was looking at the full thing. Steve honed in on some parts. And then a little bit of differences between Musk and Jobs. Musk walks around the assembly lines. Steve Jobs was more in the design studios of Apple. Finally here, the heroes. So he does state some heroes and inspirations. Nikola Tesla, who he named his company after, the visionary inventor and electrical engineer who pioneered AC power systems. Musk clearly admires him. Thomas Edison frequently references him for his relentless invention, iteration, and entrepreneurship that brought great advances like the light bulb. Steve Jobs, we mentioned, admired him for his ability to disrupt industries with beautifully designed products and galvanize employees around a vision. Howard Hughes, the eccentric aviation and technology pioneer who inspired him, his ambitions in space travel and willingness to take risks. Ben Franklin, his inventions and values, his ingenuity and early contributions to science and business. Albert Einstein, he's frequently talked about looking up to his contributions to physics, including the theory of relativity. Henry Ford, Musk views Ford as an early manufacturing and business innovator who brought automobiles to the masses with scale production. Walt Disney as well, so citing his ability to make people happy through immersive fantasy worlds as a model. SpaceX rockets have Disney character names. Lord Byron seems inspired by the Romantic era writer and freethinker, quoting him and naming one of his sons, Xavier, after a Byron character. So he definitely has his share of mentors and heroes, inspiration that he has looked into. Inventors, scientists, industrialists who shaped modern technology, as well as creative visionaries, I would kind of peg that into. And so with that, this is episode 22 on Elon Musk. Definitely a different frame of leader and definitely taking certain qualities and approaches to extremes. Some of those extremes lead to very breakthrough results and breakthrough products into industries that, frankly, I don't know how many other people would touch. And so definitely a leader to study. Maybe, it's not for everyone in terms of embodying his qualities and his leadership. I think it's a tremendously unique style to embody. And so it works to some extent for him, and it's led to him achieving success within a lot of different verticals and companies. And so, again, a interesting leader to study here, episode 22, and we will be back here soon with episode 23. Thanks.